Hi, my name is Kaze, and welcome to another Right Brain tutorial. I know it's been a while, it's been a really long time since I've done any tutorials. Unfortunately, I've been like crazy busy, but now, guess what? I got a lot of free time on my hands. So I thought, why not put this time to good use and create some new tutorials? So one of my most watched tutorials is how to take scene data from Houdini and bring it into AfterEffects, so you can kind of add some additional new cool little tweaks, right? So in the tutorial that I did in the past, I use this Orbolt add-on for Houdini called Houdini 2AE. And some of you have pointed out that this no longer works in Houdini 18, and I thought, okay, why don't I take the time then to come up with a couple of alternate ways that you can bring your Houdini data into After Effects. And I thought I would split this into actually two tutorials, and I'm going to show you option number one in this one, and then in a second tutorial I'm going to go with option number two, so you have like two different ways of doing it. My main kind of mandate on this is to figure out a way to do it that wouldn't involve actually having to spend additional money to pay for some third-party tool or anything else that that would cost money. So so this is you know, we're gonna do this this first way. We're gonna do it using the version of Cinema4D that comes built into all of the Adobe Creative Cloud subscriptions, and we're going to use that as an intermediary between Houdini and After Effects. So let's get to work. I am using the latest production build, at least as of this recording, of Houdini 18, which is version 4.16. And I have a pretty simple scene here. I have basically a column. I have a grid that I'm using as a floor. I've already rendered this scene with some displacement. You'll see it like when we get into After Effects. Then I have a camera, and I have a null. And this I placed this null here on the column that I thought, well, maybe we'll place some lens flare or something like that, something kind of weird on that spot right there. And then I have an environment light that I just have like an HDRI map going to. And if I hit play, you can see like the basic animation. It's just kind of like a dolly around the column, so the camera is just kind of you know, making this move. And my scene is running at 24 frames per second, and it's 120 frames long. So step number one, how do we bring this you know, elements into Cinema4D? And there's two ways that we can do it. If you go under the export, we can use Alembic or you can use FBX. And what I thought we would do is, why don't we use FBX for this tutorial, and then I'll use Alembic for the next tutorial. So click on Filmbox FBX. I'm going to save this on my desktop. There's a couple of things that I changed. One is I unchecked this export in ASCII format because I know that some applications have a hard time reading ASCII format FBXs, so why even bother using it? The other thing that I did is export, make sure that this is set to export frame range and not current frame. Otherwise, you're going to bring the FBX into Cinema4D and wonder why it's not moving. So export frame range, so it's got like my frames from 1 to 120. As far as the source object, I'm just telling it whatever is in my OBJ context, so all of those things right here, bring those along. Why not? I unchecked create root for subnet because I don't want to like create any additional hierarchies. I just want to keep things as simple as possible. And the only other thing that I did, everything else is pretty much like the default. I just checked this conserve memory at the expense of export time. I don't know if it does anything, but it exports really fast, so I figured why not conserve memory. So with all that done, I'm just going to click export, and we're done, and we can actually leave Houdini. And here on my desktop, I just created this FBX file. So now let's go into After Effects. And what we want to do is actually we want to launch Cinema4D, and the way we're going to do this, we're just going to go in After Effects under File. If you click on New, Max on Cinema4D File, you can just kind of click on this guy, and it will ask you to save. I don't know, we can just kind of call this whatever. It doesn't matter because we're not going to actually use this file. We're just using this as a way to launch Cinema4D Lite. So I'm just going to click Save on the desktop, and it's going to launch Cinema4D Lite. And we actually, what we want to do now is So this untitled file, we're just going to close it, close all projects, because we don't really care for it. Why don't we care for it? Because when I did it this way, when it came into After Effects, it came in incorrectly. So this other way that I'm going to show you to do it is the way that I've been able to get it done, so that it looks proper in After Effects. I don't know if this is a bug. I mean, it's so weird for Adobe to have any bugs, right? But anyway, just kind of do it this way. You're gonna like save yourself some grief. So I'm just gonna go under File, and if you're coming from Houdini, you're probably like looking for some sort of import option here, and there is none. And the reason why is because Cinema4D automatically recognizes .fbx files, .abc files, obj files, I think like, I don't know, all sorts of different formats automatically. So you just use the open project command to bring in an FBX file or whatever it is that you're using. So I'm just going to click open. I'm just going to point it to this FBX file that we created in Houdini. Click open. And this is just like the default settings. I didn't touch anything here. The main thing that I'm interested in is that it brings in the geometry, brings in the camera, and any animation. So I'm going to click OK. And it brought in my scene. And this is really cool because if we hit play, you'll see that the camera moves. And everything looks cool except for one thing, which is that it's really teeny tiny. And the reason why is that Cinema4D uses centimeters as the unit versus Houdini that uses meters. And just to kind of do some house cleaning, I like to kind of keep everything kind of scaled properly, just in case I want to add some additional things later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command D, which brings in my project settings, I guess Control D for Windows people. And I'm just kind of like, it opens up this, this set of, options here. And I'm going to click on where it says Scale Project. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this from current scale of 1 centimeters. I'm just going to set it to target scale of 1 meter. Okay? That's all I'm going to do. I click OK. And now it kind of scales everything to a more proper size. And, which is kind of cool. Actually, if I hit this guy, we can see what the camera is seeing. For some reason, whenever Cinema4D brings in an FBX file, it assigns a black material to it. And it makes everything really difficult to see. So I'm just going to click on this material tags and get rid of them so we can kind of see a little bit better what the hell is going on. And if I hit play, we have our camera move exactly the way it was in Houdini. So now we have it in Cinema4D Lite. So we're pretty much kind of good to go here. And all I want to do now is I need to save this. Because remember, we did unuse the file that was created in After Effects. This is a brand new file. I just used that file to open up Cinema4D Lite. So I'm going to go under File. I'm going to save, choose the Save Project. And I'm just going to save it on my desktop. It takes its name from the FBX file, which is nice. So that works for me. Just going to hit Save. And that's it. And we are done with Cinema4D. Let's go back into After Effects. And in After Effects, you can see here in your project window that it still has that untitled Cinema4D file that we're not going to use. So you can kind of like go ahead and delete that one. And rather what we're going to do is under File, we're going to import our brand new Cinema4D file that we created with the FBX import. So I'm going to go under File, I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and I'm going to click on H2AE underscore Cinema4D, whatever it is that I called it. I'm going to click Open, and now it brings in the correct file. Okay, this has our FBX information that has, in turn, our Houdini information. Sorry, this is kind of getting confusing. Hopefully it's not. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create a new composition using this file. So all I have to do is just kind of click and drag into this guy, and that creates a brand new composition. I'm going to get this out of the way. So what it does, it kind of like literally brings in our Cinema4D file right into Houdini using this this thing that it's called Cineware. And we don't really care about that. What we do care is that we get the scene data from it, okay? Like we don't really want to re-render this in After Effects. That's not what we're trying to do. I already rendered it using, whatever render engine that you might want to use from Houdini. What I do want is positional data, and I want the camera information so I can kind of add new stuff into After Effects. So how do we do that? Let me bring in my effect control so we can kind of see it here. So if I highlight this layer right here, we'll see that we have like all our Cineware kind of controls, and one of them is Cinema4D scene data, and it's got this neat little extract button, and if you hit extract, it does something. It creates a camera, okay? So this is kind of nice. The problem is, where is everything else? Because most importantly, I need the camera, but I also want that null that tells me that there's this spot on the column that I'm going to place something on it, right? So it didn't bring that in. Why did it not bring that in? Let's undo that, and let's go back into Cinema4D Lite, and I'll show you exactly why that it didn't bring that. So it took me a little bit of Googling to figure this out, but apparently the only things that Cineware recognizes in After Effects from Cinema4D is the camera and if there's any lights. Those it will bring in automatically. But any geometry objects or nulls or anything else that you have in here, it won't recognize it until you add this very specific tag. So right now I want to bring this null into After Effects. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to go under render tags, and I'm going to add an external compositing tag, okay? That's what it is. So any of these elements that you want to have represented in After Effects, at least positionally, you have to attach this external compositing tag. If you don't do that, After Effects doesn't know that you actually want to bring that into your scene. So having said that, you also need to save the file, because until you save it, there's no way that After Effects knows that you made any changes to your Cinema4D project. So I'm just going to hit Command S to save, or Control S for you Windows freaks, and go back to After Effects. And now if I hit extract one more time, now you'll see that not only did it create a camera, but it also created this column light null. Let me get this out of the way. And this null follows our column exactly. So that's exactly what we want. We wanted this data information. This is the whole point of going through this exercise, is to be able to kind of bring in a camera and data information from Houdini all the way into After Effects. So at this point, we can actually kind of uncheck. We don't need to like see the Cinema4D layer, because honestly, like, we're done with this. We're gonna use our own render, and then we're going to use now this camera and this null to add some additional elements into After Effects. So that's all. This is the end of the tutorial. We're done, but let's kind of have some fun with it for anybody that's interested, and let's see what we can do with this stuff that we just brought in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and import my my render. So let's see here. Where did I put it? Under Houdini, 3DL test, render. Here we go. Open AXR sequence, open, and I'm just going to drag this into my composition. Cool. So now we have the column, and you'll see that like the null sticks right to my render, which is exactly what I want it to happen. So this is fantastic. So let's do something with it. Let's attach how about like a lens flare. So I'm gonna create a new solid, make comp size, call it lens flare, and I'm gonna, here, let me bring in my effect controls right here so we can see a little bit better what I'm doing, and I'm gonna add the really awesome Video Copilot optical flares. I'm just gonna set this on transparent so I can see what the hell I'm doing. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the source type from 2D to 3D. So now our optical flares is working in 3D space, and it's recognizing the camera from our scene. The only problem is that like the lens flare disappeared, because it's somewhere around here, and we don't really know where that is into space. Where we want to actually put the lens flare is right here where this null is. So all I have to do is go under my little null, hit P. It gives me like the position, and then go back into my lens flare and just type these numbers into here, into the position. So we have 0, -250, and -50. There you go. So now our lens flare, and as a matter of fact, we can even uncheck the visibility because we don't need to really see the null. And now the lens flare should be moving exactly with our column. So that's cool. So yeah, that's kind of neat. Let me change the composite mode to screen. No, it doesn't. And also because I didn't put in like I didn't create like an alpha or a crypto matte for my column, let's just kind of put this lens flare on top of it instead of, I'm just going to change the Y position. Let's put it right here. How's that? And let's change the, let's make it red. Why not? Is there a different one? Let's do like an Eye of Sauron type of lens flare. Here we go. It's kind of cool. So that's, I don't know, that's kind of like one thing that we could do with our scene. What else can we do? Just to kind of give you some ideas of how you can use this camera information and positional data in After Effects to kind of do some post things that maybe, you know, for whatever reason you might opt to do in After Effects rather than do it all as a render. Let's put like some stars in the background. So I'm going to use this free plugin from Video Copilot called Orb. So I'm just going to create a new solid, make a comp size, call it Orb, and I'm just going to go and create this VC Orb. So what this does is it creates a sphere in 3D space, and right now we can't see it, and the reason why we can't see the sphere is because it's actually defaulting to this position. So if I put it like at the center of my origin, now we'll see it. Okay, so there's my sphere, and it's moving with my scene, it's recognizing the camera. So what do I want to do with this sphere? I want to use this sphere to basically turn it into a sky dome. And the way I'm going to do that is first I need a spacey star texture. So I'm going to go, and I have like this, I think you can actually kind of get it from Video Copilot. But let me see here. I have stock photos, planetary texture. I have this Milky Way. All it is just this, you know, this, I don't even know if it's an HDRI, but it's this kind of texture here. I don't know if you can kind of see it. It's basically just this kind of galaxy texture. So I'm just going to drag it and bring it into my composition. Now, we don't really need to see it. We're just going to use it so that we can kind of map this texture to our orb. So I'm just going to uncheck this, go back into Orb, and I'm just going to go under Maps, and I'm just going to say under Diffuse Layer, use this star's Milky Way. And if I do that, you'll see that now it's been mapped on the sphere. I don't want the sphere to be shiny, so I'm just going to take the glossiness and the specular down to 0. I guess we can also use it for the illumination layer. Why not? Okay. So now, the other thing that I want to do is, so now we have like this sphere that is mapped with this you know, stars, and I want to use it into like a sky dome. So I need to make the sphere really, really huge. So that's, you know, if you can imagine like the camera is like kind of in this little space, I want the sphere to be like gigantic around it. So I'm just going to change the radius of the sphere from, let's make it, I don't know, 50,000, whatever unit that is. So now the sphere should be like really gigantic. And if I go to where we can see the sky a little bit here, I'm just going to turn off the lens flare just for now so we can see a little bit better what the hell we're doing. We should be seeing the stars in here, and we're not. And the reason why is because Orb automatically maps whatever texture that you told it to the front. And in this particular case, we want it on the back, on the inside of the sphere, or you can say all. But anyway, just going to click back, and now we have this star map on the back of the sphere. Let me just kind of bring my EXR render right here. Okay, so we can see both. Okay, cool. So now we basically have this this kind of star map in the background. We can even add like some motion blur, And let's bring back like the lens flare. Where is the lens flare? Bring it back here. There you go. So yeah, so anyway, so that's basically, that's what we want. We want the lens flare to be at the very top. Make it like slightly less bright, so it's not so crazy. Actually, let's put in a flicker. Let's put in like a really crazy flickering to this flare. Like sending some weird messages. Anyway. So that's it. Like that's an example of how, you know, we were able to bring in Houdini data along with our render and then add some additional elements into After Effects. So this is kind of cool, and hopefully this has been useful to you guys, especially if you were trying to use the old method and the old method no longer works. So this is a new way of doing it, an alternative way of doing it that doesn't cost any money, because you should, as I said, already have Cinema4D Lite, and if you have the full Cinema4D, that works great as well. Same methodology. In the next video, I'm going to show you yet another method, a third method that you can utilize, and we're not going to use the Cinema4D Lite at all to bring in and basically end up with the same type of scene. So stay tuned for that if you're interested, and I hope you found this helpful, and click subscribe and tell your friends, and I promise I'm going to be a little bit better, especially now that I have a lot of free time, and do some more of these tutorial videos. Thank you so much, and see you next time.